Hi guys and welcome. It's Friday and we try to eat vegetarian meals on Fridays. So today we are having a vegetarian lasagna for dinner. So I thought maybe I would share that with you. So the first thing I have in here is 100 grams of butter that I'm going to melt down on a low heat just to melt it down, and then that's going to be the basis for our white sauce, okay? Lots of activity outside today. And the other thing I'm going to show you then is how to make your pasta sauce, or like what would normally be your bolognese, but it's going to be a vegetarian version. So we are going to use another pot for that, which I will just go and get. While I was looking for the other pot, the butter has already melted here. So you don't want it, you just want it to melt. If you leave it too long, it'll go brown and it will burn, and you don't want that. So I'm going to add to my butter 200 grams of plain flour. Okay, so 100 grams of butter, 200 grams of plain flour. And what I do is I mix the butter through until all of the butter is absorbed into the flour. Okay, you can see that it's just got a dry consistency. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to this. Good bit of salt, give it a nice flavor, and a little bit of black pepper. And the other ingredient I like to add to this is some ground nutmeg. If you have fresh nutmeg, go ahead and use some fresh nutmeg. I'm out of it at the moment. So I have a good teaspoon of fresh or brown nutmeg in there. And I'm going to bring it back over to the heat. And what I'm going to do is mix through my flour. Just keep it stirred over on the heat for a little bit, because the heat will pop the gluten in the flour, and that's what's going to make it thick. Okay, so in the meantime, while that is heating up, you just leave it. It'll be fine there, just heating up by itself. I'm going to use my food processor here, and I'm going to chop up quite a large onion and some garlic. I'm going to pop the two of them in together in here and blitz them. If you don't have a food processor, just chop one large onion and one large garlic clove quite fine, okay? Because that's going to be the basis. Oops, sorry about that. That's going to be the basis for your sauce. So I'm going to blitz them here, loud noises. Okay, I'm just keeping an eye on my flour and butter that it doesn't get too heated. I'm just trying to enhance the flavor from the nutmeg by heating it up. Okay, so in a second pot, you want to pour in your onions and your garlic and just pop them into your pot. And I'm going to keep using my processor to puree all my vegetables for my sauce. Again, if you don't have a processor, don't worry about it, just chop everything finely or grate everything finely. There's no need to wash your food processor in between each time you do it. Okay, now our sauce, that is nicely cooked there, and I'm going to add to that some milk, which is over here. Okay, so what you want to do is add your milk slowly. You can hear my pot is quite hot, and you just want to make sure that you mix all your, you want to, like, I don't know what the word is for this. You're basically mixing all your flour into your milk, and you're trying to avoid having lumps, and that's why you're beating it in like that. Just add another little bit of milk. Keep going like that, and that's basically how you make a white sauce, guys. You would use the same basic ingredients if you wanted to make a cheese sauce or a plain white sauce or a bread sauce. It's all the same basic ingredients in here. Well, actually, I'm not sure about a bread sauce. I just said that because it sounded good. Anyway, see the way I'm just keep beating to try and get all the lumps out. However, you could be beating here all day, and who has time for that? I'm just going to stir my onions a little bit. Something I discovered years ago is not to waste my time on beating my sauce, but just to add my milk, and then I can use a handheld blender to get the lumps out later on, and it just saves a lot of time. Sorry now if I've offended the purists who like to stand over and beat each particle of flour out. I don't. So I'm just going to pop that back on there, and I'm going to work away now with my next ingredients for my sauce. So what I did was this morning I cleaned my fridge. A big event in my life. I actually took out all the trays and I got in at each, you know, of the grooves, and it was not a pretty sight. I have to say, it was a little bit embarrassing. However, I discovered a haul of vegetables that were about to turn. So this is the wonderful thing about making a vegetarian dish. You can just chuck everything in there and you don't waste anything. So I'm going to pop all my mushrooms in here. I don't even have to chop them. Just throw them all in there and turn my food processor on. It takes very, very little time, especially as they get stuck. I found a lot of courgettes and a lot of tomatoes because they were on special offer, so I bought a heap of them. So I am going to just help these mushrooms to break down a little bit. You don't have to use mushrooms. You don't have to use any of the vegetables that I'm telling you. I'm just using the ones that I had in my fridge that needed to be used up. So if you've got somebody who's allergic to mushrooms, don't worry about it. You don't need to use it. So I'm going to add the mushrooms to my onion and garlic, which is just almost softened here. So it's basically like as if you were making a normal bolognese sauce, but you're not using meat. Does that make sense? So I'll keep going here. I have some courgettes. I'm just going to take the ends off, chop it up roughly, and throw it into my food processor here. And as I said before, you can use any type of... Oh, do you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put the spices into my onion mix. Okay, so keep an eye on your white sauce. It'll start to stick fairly quickly. Mine is just starting to stick a little bit now. And if you find that it's sticking to the bottom and you think, oh no, I'm going to have to use a new pot, if you just take it off the heat for a little bit, the stickiness will stop and you'll be able to just rub it off. So I'm just going to leave mine off the heat now for a little bit. And I'm going to add my spices to my my onion mixture. I'm going to use some cumin today. So I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of cumin. Cumin, I think, gives great depth of flavour to any dish. I'm also going to use a little bit of turmeric. So I should have opened the packet before we started. So I'll put about 2 teaspoons of turmeric in here as well. And that'll give it a nice colour. Again, another kind of a spice that gives a great depth to any dish. And I'm going to add some curry powder. This one I'm not going to take a chance to shove it in. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of curry powder here. 2 big teaspoons. And I'm using hot curry powder today. If you don't want this to have a curry flavour, you can omit, you can use no spices, or you can omit the curry powder. I'm also going to pop a little bit of coriander, maybe just another 2 teaspoons of coriander in there. And this is what's going to transform our vegetarian lasagna into something exciting. Okay, so I'm going to use pop my other courgette in here as well. Just chop it up roughly, and away we go. So that's my courgette finished, and I'm going to add my courgette. Oh, the smell is wonderful of the curry powder. It's a good idea to allow your spices a minute or two to just heat up to burst the flavour before you start adding wet ingredients like the courgette. So I'm going to pop this in here now. And just keep cooking it on a low heat, allowing it to simmer down, and keep going like that with your vegetables. The other vegetables I have here is a green pepper, which honestly, we never use green peppers in our house. So it's always one of those things that's left lying in the bottom of the fridge, and it usually ends up being thrown into something like this because nobody eats them. So I'm going to pop them in there. Anybody else like me, and whenever something's on special offer, you buy 25 million of them and then you end up throwing half of them out, so it's not really a special offer. So I'm trying to be more abstemious in my purchases. There's a nice big word. So there we go. If you have vegetables that are slightly starting to turn, don't use any of the, there's a little part there that's a wee bit soft. Just cut it out and the rest of it is fine. So I wouldn't use any soft bits. Okay, to that I'm going to add some celery sticks. I have about 5 celery sticks here. And celery is one of those things that adds great flavour to any vegetarian dish. Just like onion and garlic, it's almost a staple for me in flavour. And it's going to break down really nicely because it's full of water. So I'm going to blitz these guys as well. I'm going to add the peppers and celery now to my vegetable dish over here. And just keep adding whatever vegetables you like. Again, if you don't have a food processor, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be this consistency. I just find it's easier for my kids to eat vegetables if they're pureed, although they're kind of at a stage now where they're more mature palates. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some carrots, and I've topped and tailed them and washed them, but you don't have to peel them. Another great benefit to pureeing vegetables. No need to peel. So just chop them up roughly, throw them into your food processor, and away we go. Blitz them. I'm going to add as well to my vegetable dish some salt and pepper. Forgot to mention that. Just a wee drop of salt and pepper to add the flavour. So I'll just go ahead and do that now while I have you there. Oops. Bit of plastic went in there, we don't want that. Okay guys, so I'm just going to blitz these. So I'm going to add the carrots now, and we have quite a large pot of vegetables at this stage. So the final ingredient I'm going to add to this are tomatoes. I just happen to have a glut of tomatoes in the fridge, but you can totally use tins of tomatoes, or you could use some passata. I might even add some passata to this because I find it adds a nice velvety feel to any pasta sauce. But again, I just don't want to be throwing these tomatoes out in a couple of days, so I'm just going to use them in my food processor. So that took very little time to get the tomatoes blitzed up. Pop them in here as well. And I'm just going to let that cook down, take its time over a nice low heat. And the final ingredient I'm going to add are a tin of chickpeas. I like to add chickpeas or beans or something like that because that gives your meal some protein. Especially with a vegetarian meal, it's nice to add a little bit of protein in there. I'm going to move that over here to my low heat and just let it cook down. I'll just show you what it looks like actually. What a lovely big pot full of vegetables. And they smell delicious. The colours are amazing. Who needs meat? Okay, there we go. I'll put it back onto the heat. In the meantime, let's get back to our white sauce, which is over here. And it has thickened up a lot, as you can see. So at this stage, I'm going to get my handheld blender and get rid of some lumps. Okay, so I'm just going to tilt my sauce to the side and gently start to blitz those lumps out of it. I know this is kind of a cheats way of doing it, but that's what modern equipment is for, I think. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more milk because it's quite thick now, and just want to get it moving more freely. There we go. And it doesn't take too long to just get all the lumps out. Sometimes it sticks to the bottom of the pot, so you need to scrape it along with your wooden spoon as you're blitzing. And don't be afraid to just scrape the ends off the bottom of your wooden spoon. Hope you can hear me over all this noise. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm just going to rest this into a bowl because there's a fair chance I'll have to use it again before we finish cooking our sauce. See now? It's moving nice and free. So I'm going to put it back onto the heat. A low heat. I know I'm using the high heat, but I don't have too low heat, so I have to use a high heat. And I'm going to add some more milk to that. Overall now I've probably added a litre of milk. And always err on the side of making way too much white sauce, because there's nothing worse than not having enough. You want to have a lovely creamy sauce, okay? So just keep an eye on your vegetables, give them a little stir in the hope that that'll all cook down nicely. And in the meantime, I've already cooked my pasta. So I have a big bowl of pasta ready for my pasta bake. So I have made this many times before. Did I say I was making vegetarian lasagna? Sorry. I'm making a vegetarian pasta bake. My sister-in-law, Samaya, hi Samaya, made this for me one time, and I thought it was absolutely delicious. And the trick is that she adds an egg to her white sauce, and it makes it really creamy and delicious. I've made this with meat as well, and you make it like a bolognese, but she adds some spices to her meat. So, and the bolognese wouldn't be quite as runny as we would normally make it, or tomato based, just more meat based. And she would add maybe some curry powder or even cinnamon to her meat, her minced meat. Delicious, absolutely delicious. So I'm keeping a close eye on my white sauce here because that is a high heat I have it on, and it's thickening up again very quickly, and it could very easily stick to the bottom. That's why I have to keep taking it off the heat, or I could just keep it on a low heat. Okay, so I'm just going to add another little bit of milk to that because it is still thickening, and each time you add it back to the heat it will thicken, and you keep adding milk until it stops thickening, you know what I mean, until you feel it is not going to get too thick. I hope that makes sense. Roughly on average 100 mils or grams of butter, 200 grams of flour to approximately, I've used now about 1.5 litres of milk so far. So we'll pop it back on the heat and see what happens. Just going to give this fella here another stir. Look at all that goodness. I mean, it just has to be good for you, right? So many vegetables. And what a great way to get lots of vegetables into you with a vegetarian dish. I'm not going to cook this a whole lot more, guys, because it will cook again further in the pasta bake. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of passata to this. So I'm just going to add 1 jar of passata. There's 700 grams of passata in here. So I'm just going to add all of that to this dish. There's Maria. Hi, Maria.
Hi, guys.
It's lovely when you see your kids going upstairs to change their jumpers for t-shirts because it's just so nice and warm outside. Is it nice out there?
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Do you come on over here and tell the guys about your chickens? You don't want to?
We got a few, and then we lost one, and then we got another 2, and they're great.
How many eggs are you get? How many eggs did you get today?
6.
And how many hens have you got?
We've got 7, so
that's
really
fantastic. And what else?
we've started selling the eggs.
She has started to sell her own eggs. She has 2 customers already, taking 6 eggs a week. Isn't that fantastic? So anybody else wants some nice hen's eggs, give us a shout. What do you think, Maria?
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to put this back on the heat. I'm going to swap over to the high heat for the sauce and let the passata cook up a bit. And then we have our white sauce here, which I think is not going to thicken much more. I think that's about the height of it. I'm going to give it one last blitz with my blitzer, just to take any lumps out. Guys, we are finished with all our cooking, and now it's time to assemble everything together. I'm going to use a large lasagna type dish today, even though I'm not making lasagna, sorry, I'm making pasta bake. So just keep giving, even though I've taken this white sauce off the heat, it's still thickening a little bit on the bottom, so I'm just giving it another little stir. So I'm going to hold back some of the white sauce to keep for the top. So I need to find a bowl to do that. Here we go. And the rest of it, I am just going to pop my pasta into it. So I'm going to hold back about maybe a third for the top. The rest of it I'm going to add my pasta to. I may not use all this pasta because I've cooked 2 packets of pasta because I felt 1 wasn't enough. And of course 2 was too many, but a little bit of leftover pasta is always a good thing to have in the fridge, especially when it's coming into the weekend. And it looks like we're going to have a nice sunny weekend, so nobody wants to cook. We all want to be outside. I hope you got a chance to plant some seeds. Don't worry, it's not too late. Some seeds shouldn't really be sown for another month yet anyway, so don't worry if you haven't got out into your garden yet. So as you can see, just stirring through the pasta. Oh my gosh, I forgot to add the egg. What am I like? Never worry, it's never too late. We can add it now. Just watch this magic. I'll pop an egg in here just like that and just give it a quick stir up. It's the same thing anyway, isn't it? If you put your egg in with your white sauce, or with your white sauce with your pasta in there. So as you can see, I don't edit out the mistakes in my videos, I just keep going. I'm going to add another egg in here as well. These are literally just collected from the hens, and I'll add 1 egg to the piece of white sauce that I kept back. This is good crack. I'm sure you're all laughing your heads off. Mommy and Daddy, you're probably watching this, laughing your heads off at the woman who keeps forgetting to do bits and pieces. Now, I hope you can see the difference the egg adds to the pasta. It just makes it really, really rich and creamy. Just going to add another little 2 handfuls of pasta to this, and away we go. You can always keep some pasta back and serve it with something else any other time. Okay, so I have mixed everything through. I'm going to add 1 layer of pasta in here now with the sauce. So I'm just going to keep half then for the top, okay? I know this looks really messy, but everything can be cleaned up. And that's the thing about, if you allow your kids to make a mess in the kitchen, you'll actually teach them how to have confidence for cooking later on whenever they leave home. So don't be worried about a mess. It's not a big deal, it can be cleaned up. So to my pasta now, I'm going to add my vegetarian sauce. I'm just going to put a layer over the top like that. I probably have enough here to make 2. So don't worry about making too much. You can always freeze some of it or make 2 of these guys. Give 1 away. I feel so sorry for people who have just had babies in lockdown. They don't really have a whole lot of support, you know. families can't come to visit and friends can't pop in to give new mums a break. I'm going to add another little bit. So I think it's lovely to be able to just drop a dinner around. And that would be one less thing for new mums to have to do. So if you do like me and you end up making way too much food, make up an extra one and pop it around to somebody who needs a little bit of help. And you know, I'm sure that would come under the legitimate reason for travel, to help a friend in need. Okay, so I've kind of almost filled that 2/3 of the way. I still have probably a half a pot left over here, so you could reduce everything that I've used by half if you feel that you just don't want to have too much. And I'm going to pour the last bit onto the top just to cover over the sauce. Oh, this, I hope you can see how creamy and rich this sauce looks. So good. So just try and spread it around. And I'm going to crack one more egg, as I said, into my sauce and give it a good stir up. This is quite a small egg. We get all different sizes of eggs from our hens. So this must be a small hen out there. So if you guys have any tips for the hens, would love to hear them. This is our second attempt at having hens. The first time Tony and I tried it about 10 years ago, but life was kind of crazy back then with lots of babies, and I think Tony might have been doing his master's at the time, and it was just wasn't the right time for us. But now is a great time, and it's really Maria who's doing most of it anyway. So, but we have some shells that are very weak. So if anybody has any tips for how to strengthen eggs shells, that'd be great. So I'm just going to pour the little bit of white sauce that I kept back over the top, just like this. And it's just going to cover everything and give it that lovely topping. And then we're going to just sprinkle a little bit of cheese over the top, and it will be a lovely crunchy golden top to our pasta bake. Okay, so the more white sauce you use, the less chance your pasta bake has of drying out. Okay, so that's why always err on the side of more rather than less white sauce. So I'm just going to use my shop bought grated cheese, sprinkle all over the top like that. This is the nicest part, Liam, isn't it? The grated cheese.
Yeah.
You love that part. You're very hot. Look, and is it hot outside?
Yeah, it is.
And you have a glass of water. Okay, guys, I'm going to pop that into my low oven and cook it for about 40 minutes or so. There's no meat in here, so it doesn't have to be terribly long time. We're not cooking the meat through. So I will come back and show you the finished product then when I clean up. Ta-da! Gosh, it weighs a ton. How does that look, guys? Absolutely delicious. Beautiful vegetarian, not lasagna, pasta bake. I'll just grab a plate here so I can pour some out and show you guys what it looks like inside. And that's the perfect color that you want it to be. You don't want it to go too more golden than that. Just delicious looking. What a lovely treat for your Friday. I've completely overfilled this dish, as you can tell. It's a Chinofoil classic, but how about that for a delicious looking meal? And it smells beautiful, all those lovely spices. Gorgeous. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you all have a lovely weekend. Today is the feast of Saint Joseph, and I have a son called Joseph, so happy feast day to you. Hope you all have a lovely weekend. God bless. See you soon.